Welcome to our work session for March 13th, 2013 of Richmond Community Schools School Board of Schools Trustees. Would you please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we're ready for our statement of mission.
The mission statement for Richmond Community Schools states, graduate students who are literate, responsible, proficient in state and national standards, and college or career ready.
And that's what we're all about tonight, and our vision.
By 2020, Richmond Community Schools will be the highest performing school system in East Central Indiana.
Thank you. Now we're ready for our consent items.
The consent agenda includes tonight the approval of minutes from our February 27th, 2013 board meeting and executive session, recommendation from Human Resources, and there is no addendum tonight, correct? Recommendation for corporation-sponsored travel from the Richmond High School Band. Filing of reports. This would be the food service bid report. Filing of reports, the summer school plan. And a recommendation to approve the proposal submitted by the third grade academy for summer programming.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent items? Motion made by Pat Heine, seconded by Aaron Stevens. Comments and questions?
I have one.
Okay, Pat?
As I was looking over the third grade summer reading academy and thinking about last year's concern that I had, that since this is a Richmond Community Schools program, why didn't we hire all Richmond Community Schools teachers? I'm assuming we are going to do that this year.
Well, that's a good question. The proposal as written is almost identical to the proposal that was submitted last year. The difference is we were very emphatic when we put out our request for proposals that the teachers hired would have to be from the Richmond Community Schools personnel. And Rick Ahaus is our contact person. I have left a message with Rick Ahaus. He's out of state, kind of off the continent right now. And but Kirsten Phillips is the person who will be working as the director of that program. She's had communication with Mr. Millis and has assured us that she's in command of who will be selected for those positions. And she knows that she has said that she feels very strongly that we have the highly qualified staff that would be necessary for that.
Well, I think
assignment.
they need to know we'll be looking at that because that's a very important part, not only.
Is there any
Well, you know what,
reason
we
why
could-
we would approve it based on that?
We could say that approval is contingent on hiring all Richmond Community Schools personnel for those assignments.
Would you like for us to do that?
I-
I would feel comfortable doing that.
I would feel comfortable.
Part of the motion?
Sure.
And since
Well,
parliamentarian,
do we need to pull
You have
that,
to rescind that.
the third grade academy out? Is that what we need to do, Ron?
It's cleaner. Makes it easier
Okay,
for families to make
so what we need is
there's a motion and a
so
second. on
should
the
we
floor.
retract the motion that's been made?
Yes.
decisions or amendment.
Okay,
Who made the motion?
Pat made the motion.
Okay.
So Pat,
So I will retract, and you seconded?
Yes, I did.
okay.
So the new consent items will be 3.01, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay, so do we need to vote to
Hold on, you have
retract?
parliamentarian.
The
gonna
parliamentarian
plus
has
something.
I'm just,
He's making the motion.
Consider the second.
yes.
Oh, okay.
So we're okay? Okay. So,
I would
Aaron.
move to approve consent items 3.01 through 3.05 as presented.
okay, motion's been made. Kelly Baumgartner seconds it. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, now, we need a motion
I would
to-
recommend that we, that the board approve the proposal as submitted, contingent on hiring Richmond Community Schools teachers for the teaching positions.
I'll make
What he
that
said.
motion.
Okay. Motion made by Suzanne
I'll
Darengowski,
second.
seconded by Jeff Slifer. Comments or questions?
I guess.
I
Aaron.
think this gives us an opportunity to, we have great faith in our teachers, and we have great faith in our teachers and the work that they do. And because this is a collaboration between Richmond Community Schools and that program, I feel that it shows again the faith that we have in our teachers to be able to not only do the job, but also deliver a great learning environment by stipulating this.
Hear, hear. Any other comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Takes care of my concern.
Okay, we've gotten the business out of the way, now we can go to the fun part. We are here tonight to have a work session, and I would like to welcome our nice crowd of people that's here tonight to have, as Mr. Coddington would say, a very riveting conversation. And I will turn it over to Dr. Borf now.
Has anyone taken account of the number we have over there? I think we probably need all 7. We're going to have 7 conversations tonight, 7 groups, and we will be splitting all of you up in just a second. But the evening will be broken into 2 basic sessions, and we will have a facilitator for each group. The facilitators are sitting up here at this table. And so what we're going to do at this point, there will be further instructions. We will divide up by 7. We'll count off by 7.
There are about 33 people.
That'll work out. That'll work out. And let me show you where the groups will be. Group number 1 will be right through here. It's up. Would we, Linda, are you going to get that group? Kathy, would you make sure the group number 4? Okay. By now, you should have identified a spokesperson for your group. We are going to go around the room. We're going to go around the room and we're going to allow the spokesperson to give 1 point. Not all the points, just 1 point. And we'll keep going. We have group 7 straggling in here. Okay. This is for group 7. We have group 7 emerging. That's 5, I'm sorry. Group 7's on time. We have this time for the sharing out, and so that not one group is able to share everything all at once, we'll start with group 1, and we would like for group 1 to talk about one item that came up of quality. Tell us how that quality is linked to one of the 21st century skills. And once that's done, then give the microphone to somebody in group 2 who is supposed to be the spokesperson. And it's important that you use the mic because we are recording this. So please use the microphone, and we'll spend the next 15 minutes approximately going around the room and sharing out the results. So, Susie, go ahead.
I'll just start with the first one on our list, really, is early college. We felt like it provided opportunities in all 4 areas of 21st century skills, but was particularly strong in critical thinking and communication.
We listed STEM as a strength for the district. We have various levels of implementation, but we saw that as a strength for the district.
Pam, you wanna say that again a little louder?
We listed STEM as a positive for the district, and we have some varying degrees of implementation, but we saw that as a strength.
We looked at diverse programs, which included the creative and fine arts, as well as logos, early college, project lead the way, items like that. And we linked that to the creativity and critical thinking aspects of 21st century skills.
Welcome from Group 4 in the hall. We identified collaboration in the form of really well-defined and well-accepted distributive leadership. We think we have great community partnerships integrated into most of our areas, as evidenced by our career ed at the high school with dual credits, our history grant that reaches across many institutions, and of course our Safe Schools, Healthy Children initiative that intentionally reaches out into the community to serve our students better.
Hold on. We went with a critical thinking piece, and we talked about how always to ask why. I'm an instructional coach at the high school, and when you go in, we're seeing high level of questioning. We're having kids ask questions. I'm even seeing it with my little one at home, the critical thinking on his homework. So that's one thing that we know will improve in all areas of their education, by just having them ask why and in telling them to ask why, that it's okay.
One thing that this group highlighted that I am reporting on is the flipped classroom model is a strength that's happening in the high school specifically, but some of the things that they're utilizing is building upon some of that as a creative way of and I'll let the educators explain it since I'm just a lowly reporter, that it's kind of getting the students more engaged in collaborative learning together and having the teacher be more of a facilitator, kind of more of a Columbo type person asking questions rather than someone that's standing up and just telling them what they need to know, which they're also utilizing some technological pieces like using FaceTime or Skype to communicate with these students. So,
thank you.
We talked about a large number of things, which many of you have already talked about, but at Chad's request, I wanted to talk about our diverse arts programs. He wanted me to sing this whole thing. But we felt like all the way K through 12, there were a big variety of arts programs that really fostered that creativity among our students.
Keith, you want to bring it back over to group number 1?
Certainly.
Dance over. There you go.
This is the second go-around, and we'll keep going until we've exhausted the points.
We had academic teams, because we have academic teams really starting in the elementary all the way up, and they provide a great opportunity for, again, pretty much all 4 areas: collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and certain level of creativity as well.
We saw technology. We saw technology use as a daily tool and no longer as an add-on, and that's definitely a 21st century skill.
We went with freedom for innovation for both teachers and students, and that was more for creativity and the opportunity to actually fail and learn from mistakes.
Group 4 appreciates that we're really encouraged to think outside the box and take risks, and that many times that falls into many areas that are considered 21st century skills. Communication, collaboration, and critical thinking and communication are all touched and enhanced by our ability to think outside the box and our encouragement to do so.
We talked about the communication piece throughout the district, especially with Power School. Now in the elementary schools, parents can use it there, the high school.
One of the things that we highlighted was that this school district has a good social media presence and World Wide Web presence with a good website. And as someone that just moved to the community, I can testify there's a lot of good information on the community there from the website compared to other school districts that I try to get information from, just me as someone as an outside observer. But most people have a Twitter presence or Facebook presence. I see Bridget around here taking photos. That's probably on Twitter at some point in the next 20 minutes, next 2 minutes. So. And then having these meetings broadcast to the community is also a very helpful thing where many people may not have that same thing. And we have in good hands with Rob. He told me to say it.
The one that we it crossed all of them really was our ISI and the ISI kits that they're doing in the elementary school classrooms, and then we're carrying that through with the kits in middle school as well. Really forces that critical thinking piece, requires the kids to answer those questions and not just spit back a canned answer. It also requires communication. There's a lot of writing involved in that, as well as collaboration. It also involves a lot of group work and breakouts.
Around again, yeah.
One of the areas that we discussed were the large number of really functional and high-performing partnerships that we have, as evidenced by and they're in the schools as part of the curriculum almost. If you think about the banking and CIS, CALS, the work that RAM does, collaborating with us. So there are a lot of wonderful things going on that actually leak over into the classroom, a lot.
We saw a strength for our district that our teachers and our curriculum is requiring that we are teaching kids to think versus filling in blanks.
I'm just going to say this before Keith speaks. Apparently someone in our group wasn't listening. We didn't focus on Richmond Community Schools. We went broader, and we just thought we were supposed to do what are the qualities of elements of quality in any school.
So are you saying that those qualities don't exist necessarily?
Some may not exist to the degree that we would like them to.
Okay.
Our next one is complementary extracurriculars, and that would basically touch on all four. And a great example of that would be the musical we just finished up doing. Art classes, construction classes, English students, all the curriculums are kind of caught there with that.
Keith, what critical skill or 21st century skill did you identify there?
We said all four.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
We really messed up in this group.
One of the things that's been touched on all around but hasn't really been spoken directly to is the technology that RCS teachers have access to for teaching and communication. So we appreciate appropriate, continuous, and on-demand support for the use of technology in our schools.
If we're going to be talking about creativity, one of the movements that we've seen, especially at the high school, it's project-based learning, taking the place of your traditional assessments. So project-based learning, and I know that we're doing that in all schools, all levels.
One of the things we said in creative was openness to new perspectives, and one of it was the online academy for, I think, those that had maybe dropped out for some reason, and or want to drop out, as a way of having a touch point with them to give them a way to finish school, but also a way for us to follow up with them and maybe get them reintroduce them back in school and keep them connected on a pathway to a high school education.
We said that, what did we say? We're getting to that point, I feel like we said that the implementation of the RISE model has kind of pushed a lot of teachers or helped push them to implement more higher order thinking questions and higher order thinking activities.
Final round.
Well, we have two that are left that are kind of important, and so I'll say them both really fast. One is the great AP and honors program that we have going on at the high school, which is very rich in all four areas, I think, particularly critical thinking and communication. And the other is PBIS, because that is all about problem solving, collaboration, communication, and it is a real foundational piece of the success in our schools.
Under critical thinking, we talked a lot about explicit instruction and moving our students forward, and we saw that as a strength as well.
Okay, our last one is a sense of community and global view of the corporation. That's more with the collaboration, having students going out into the community and working with businesses or internships, things like that.
The one thing that we talked about was the fact that in Richmond Community Schools we still have the opportunity for professional development built into our weeks every week, and that the professional development has become more tailored to the needs of the teachers and to specific buildings. And so we feel, the teachers feel and the administrators feel well supported with the professional development opportunities that we have.
One of the things that tied all four of these together for our group was the diverse course offerings that we offer, the APs, jewelry, arts, music, everything that this corporation offers to our students of all different levels.
Two things. One, in a communication / collaboration method, is KOMs, which is, I think, is like ninth graders mentoring, 12th graders mentoring ninth graders, kind of introducing them in the high school model. And then plus one of the community things tying onto that is students going over to Ivy Tech to get a CNA license, being able to be working as a CNA in home health, and to get on track to have, I think, like 8 or 9, 10 credit hours to a degree in health sciences. So.
Yeah, we on sort of that same note, in the collaboration piece, we have been doing a few little programs in the intermediate schools where we're getting the 6th graders working with 8th graders and starting to combine those and sort of mentoring opportunities and encouraging each other to work on they made little cards for each other to work hard on the test. They got to know each other, and then so some more of those collaboration pieces, as well as just a lot of the ISI stuff does a lot of that group work thing as well. So more group work.
Bring it back over here. I think what we've seen, we're doing a lot of things very well in the Richmond Community Schools. Despite that, however, we've seen almost, more than 30 years of continuous enrollment decline. Actually, we aren't alone. If you look across the county, if you add all the students across the county, they still don't equal the number that we had here in the Richmond Community Schools in about 1978. I think it was in 1978 that we began to see a decline. At one time, we had over 12,000 students just in our school system alone, and today, with our preschool students, we still have a little over 5,000. But if you don't count our preschool students, we don't have 5,000 students. Now, we've identified a number of high-quality endeavors, high-quality points that we seem to think that we do very well. I'm telling you, despite the fact that this high-quality effort is here, we're continuing to see some enrollment declines. Now, that's dangerous today. It's dangerous because the more we see decline, the more we see revenue decline. Now, that's one danger. Obviously, that's a danger because revenue pays for our staff. Bob, each student now $6,200?
$6,271 approximately.
Okay. So if you multiply our loss last year of 130 students by $6,200 some dollars, you come to understand what kind of a revenue drop we've seen. But you know, even though it's money out of our pockets, it's more than just that. Declining enrollment means declining lifeblood in terms of the kids who walk through our halls, in terms of the parents who interact with us, and it's often the parent demands that cause our programs to be the quality they are. So, the next question that we have is, in this era of competition, because we all know some of our students are not leaving the Richmond community. They're not leaving Wayne County. They're going to other opportunities. And I sat through a meeting today where the state is, or I should say the General Assembly is looking at a bill that would expand a great deal. Vouchers would emphasize creation of more charters, actually emphasize more competition for the public schools. Mike Pence on Monday sat with or stood with all kinds of voucher and charter school proponents, 1,000 of them children who were being used to lobby their legislators by private school parents. I'm just throwing that in as a little complaint and gripe. We would not do that here. But in his comments, he mentioned 200,000 students are sitting in failing schools. Now, he didn't mention that the criteria on which we determine failing schools is based on a faulty and a flawed growth model. But we know that we have some hurdles to clear in the General Assembly. There are many people who don't feel that the public schools, not just in Wayne County, not just in Indiana, but across the country, are not doing their jobs. We have taken note tonight to show there are some really nice efforts being made, not just to promote good programs, but to connect kids with 21st century skills. We know we're doing that. The next part of our discussion, and I think this could be the really fun part, is to talk about ways that we might become more competitive. If we threw everything at the issue of competition, what would it take to make irrelevant some of our competitors? What would that take? What would our schools look like? And I've asked each of our facilitators to jumpstart the conversation if you need it. Maybe we won't need it. What would have to happen in each of our schools or in this district to create that competitive edge that would lead to enrollment increase, that would lead to the perception around this community that we are on top of things and that we're giving our students the very best that's to be given to them in terms of education? We have approximately 15 minutes, so let's begin. Kathy, you want to bring group 5 in?
Group 4, bring it in.
No, well, in a way it could be because you can.
Keith, your choice.
Okay, as we come back in, I'd like to thank everyone for their contributions. I think we probably could have gone on much longer with this particular phase, but we do have to draw a line. Group 1, what we'd like to hear about, give us a couple ideas. You don't have to limit it to one thought. But the question was, how do we become more competitive with what we have? The question was exactly, how do we best compete in this environment that demands not only quality instruction using our 21st century skills, but also enrollment growth?
Well, obviously, we've got to continue to improve our academic achievement. We said that early on. Then I think the other thing is project-based learning, school of inquiry, and also we'd really like to see trying to get kids engaged earlier and wanting to dream about what they want to be as far as career interest and dreaming, imagination, exploration. Because one of the things we talked about is a lot of the kids at that middle school level, if they don't have a working model at home, they don't know what that is. When we start talking about why you should do so well academically, they don't get that part because they don't have a working model at home. So we've got to get them some things to dream about, and we've got to let them explore what's out there for them.
Pass that over.
We said that we needed thematically organized schools, and we also need to do a better job of celebrating what we have here in Richmond schools as a staff. We tend to be our worst enemy, and that we need to do a better job at talking about all the positives in our district and all the opportunities that we have for kids.
Pam, what were your thoughts on thematically based schools?
Well, that came from that to interest others in coming back into the district or staying in the district. We needed to hit some niches, and we talked about technology, organized schools, science, math, fine arts, and maybe that all of our elementaries would be thematically based, and then we further brainstormed that if they went to the intermediate school, it could almost be like you have at the high school 9th grade academy. You could have different thematically based groups even within our 3 intermediate settings. Well, we thought that people leave because they're having their need met and it's a niche somewhere else, and we could replicate that here and do a better job at it.
Okay, thank you.
As a group, we discussed creating a small school feeling or small school thinking for the sense of community. It was brought up that parents may go to another school because they have a small school feeling, and to create that, we have to have welcoming environments. An example would be welcoming kids and parents that drop off their students in the morning, and then acknowledging that it takes time to create goodwill between teacher, parent, teacher, student, and parent-student, so that conferences may need to be longer, or taking that phone call when you really don't feel like it.
We've said that the worst problem, and we all realize this, is just the perception that people have in the community, and so how do we change that perception? But we think that getting more community members and more parents into our buildings to see what's going on so that they can see what our kids are really like. We know that our kids are great. We know that our students are amazing, but we have to get them in front of people so that people see how great they really are. And think that was it. Oh. Well, and then we said more aggressive recruiting for teachers and students. We want to go out, if a parent's on the fence about where they're going to send their student, why wouldn't we go out and at least tell them why they should pick us and, you know, be our own cheerleaders?
We had 3 main points. We want to, or we said we need to improve our marketing. We need to offer more choices. And most importantly, we need to celebrate diversity in order to increase diversity in Richmond.
Celeste, before you hand the microphone away.
Yes.
What did you mean by creating more choices? Give me an example of a choice.
Different types of schools, thematic schools.
Like the thematic model? Okay.
Celeste, would you also talk about the diversity piece a little bit?
Yes.
Because that was a really interesting, needed conversation.
We were talking about how Elisa said that people believe that Richmond is diverse, but it is a problem in Richmond. We need to bring more students to Richmond, diverse groups. We have our African American males are not performing as well as we think they should be in our schools, and so we need to have role models. We need to have African American teachers for them to look up to. We don't like to talk about it, but it's true. In order for them to improve, they need to have someone that they can look up to and talk to. Any more questions? I got the hang of this now.
Thank you.
One of the consistent themes here was that there needs to be a common language of success, both internally among the staff and the students, that celebrate stories, like get rid of that not those kids mentality that often you hear with, why aren't you going to Richmond City Schools? Well, we don't want to be with those kids. If you know what I mean, if that's what they sell me. Helping schools be branded as a community center. Someone brought up in our group that they were in a community where schools were open late so that people could use the gyms and other things like that, and like even as like a community library set up so that people could gather and commune there, so that would give a positive feeling. And the way the schools here are kind of hidden in neighborhoods lends itself well to that. Internal PR, but also having a common language and branding from start to finish, because if a student gets on the pathway at kindergarten, you know, making sure that they know that they're going to Seattle, and then having the stops along the way helps them realize, okay, I'm going somewhere, not just going in a constant cul-de-sac of stupidity, so to speak. But you know, that way the project-based language all the time. So there is so that people can, that's universal, that it's a consistent universal message, and so that people know how things are going on, and that would maybe help out with an expanded capstone program too, getting in the community so that people know, you know, 4th grade, 8th grade, 12th grade, there's some type of community thing, and you're going somewhere to the future.
Good job. We talked a lot about how being the 7th group makes it a little more challenging to that fresh ideas. But we hit a lot on that perception piece as well. We thought it was really important to focus on those transitional periods, those parts where kids can get lost, or parents may say, yeah, it's just not going well. And we felt like there were a few ideas of how to do that. The mentoring ideas that we do with our students, we felt like we need to do a better job of mentoring our parents as well. Kind of back onto what Richard was saying, that I mean, we have a parent in the group who's saying, oh, yeah, my son did this, and we looked at that, and it's all because she read the curriculum guide, which we tell everybody to do, but that doesn't mean they do it. So we felt like if we could get parent mentors who were mentoring other parents, so have 11th grade parents mentoring 8th grade parents and saying, this is what you can do, and that's sort of that whole idea goes back to that perception piece. What else did we want to say about that? What am I missing? And also more of a focus on keeping them, not trying to get anybody back, but keeping them, because we're doing we're offering the best out there. And telling that story in more of a, having all of our staff, from a paraprofessional, a bus driver, every person that those kids or parents interact with more of that, I hesitate to say customer service mindset, but I think that's what it needs to be. That's, that we are in it for the betterment of your kid, not just to get them on through to the next stage so I don't have to see them anymore. So that big perception piece, we felt like our biggest selling point, the fact that we are big and we can offer all these programs, is also our biggest stumbling block, because that small school mentality. No, I don't want to talk anymore.
Rather than have the microphone go around from group to group, are there others who would like to speak at this point? Aaron, I know you have something more to say.
Briefly, when we talk about how to market Richmond Community Schools, I'm listening to Keith, but I'm looking at Kirsten, and I've been participating with Celeste. Some of our biggest opportunities to market Richmond Community Schools are the ones who we have sitting in here, who walked these halls, who graduated, who went and got their education, who came back and are committing their lives to the furtherance of education of our students. These are prime examples. I mean, people who are committed to educating our students and are committed to not only planting a seed right now, but the commitment to education in our community. Those are our best sales. Those are our best marketing opportunities here for Richmond Community Schools. I just needed to add that out.
So who wants to be the alumni spotlight next week? Kirsten?
Anyone else wish to grab the microphone at this point?
I will. Just for a minute. We talked about probably 3 different things. Number one, that we would love it if having a high-quality school with high student achievement would be what would attract students. But when we talked about the highest achieving elementary school in this district, which is Fairview, we don't have parents knocking down the doors to get their kids into Fairview. The perception is it's those kids. And so we feel like we need something more than just high-quality schools with high-achieving students.
Before you go on, let me also add, take yourselves back several months when we were talking about the master plan and the fact about Garrison. Garrison was our highest performing elementary school with one of the greatest enrollment decreases in the system. For 3 years, Garrison lost over 20% of its enrollment, and yet year after year it was the highest performing in terms of test scores. High quality, declining growth, or no growth. Go ahead, Kathy.
So one of the ways that we obviously saw around that was offering programmatic choices, having schools that have a unique focus or a unique idea to bring families in. And then the final thing, which I think everybody has talked about, is that whole affective piece, creating that sense of community and that sense of ownership and that sense of belonging. Because if we don't get that, we won't hold on to our students.
Microphones out. Anyone? Okay. What we're going to do is take a short break, and the school board will reconvene. And it's going to reflect on this experience tonight, and Pam Lips is going to have one heck of a job because she's going to be looking, not tonight, Pam, but she's going to be taking these ideas that you've generated, and we will put those back out. We will make sure that the rest of the whole school corporation and community has a copy of what we've generated tonight. If you look around, as I've been able to do, you'll find conflicting ideas about how to be successful. One of the ideas has been these thematic schools. One idea was to charter the whole district. But we also heard one comment within a group, and that was, we can't just have a theme here and a theme there. We've got to create rich opportunities for all kids, particularly at an early age, so that they're experiencing everything you're talking about in a science school or an art school or a STEM school or whatever. So it's going to be interesting. We'll put these together. We may put them as they are, or we may find strands that we go through. Linda, you and I worked on this. Do you have some thoughts to the group before we go into a break and reconvene?
Well, I think first of all, I just appreciate so much all of you taking the time in your busy schedule to be here tonight and to have this wonderful, enriched conversation. But the important thing is what we do with this information. And that is, the board is going to begin that conversation yet tonight. And obviously, we need to keep it going. And if any of you have any wonderful ideas as to how you would like to see this continued, we would be happy to hear from you. Even right now, we can pass the microphone around if anybody has any ideas that they would like to express. If not, thank you very, very much. And you're welcome to stay, and you're welcome to leave, whichever you choose.
Principals, please identify your faculty members who were here tonight. This is part of the leadership piece of RISE.
Are reconvened, and we are ready to. Do you have thoughts, Dr. Borf, of how to structure this part?
I'm still chomping on a cookie here. What I'd like to do is just hear some reflections from the board, because you all sat in different groups. And I've already heard some interesting comments from a couple of you. It would just be nice to hear from all of you. Suzanne, go ahead.
Well, in our group, we started off by talking about giving us the competitive edge, and the folks in our group tended to sort of go towards, okay, where are the gaps? We need to. There's a couple things that if I could fix things, I would fix this, and so. I thought they were super good ideas. One was even talking about a real alternative school for the younger age kids. The idea of offering that as a competitive advantage for kids that just aren't successful in a regular sort of traditional setting. Couple of other things you see at the very top of that list that says the edge was charter all of RCS. And so I thought that was kind of intriguing, in that, because one of the questions we said was, what if we just started over? What would it look like? And so that was one of the responses to that, which I thought was good. Project-based or reality-based or relevance-based came up lots. Mm-hmm. And then the idea of a lot of our kids, by making things relevant and engaging, that's where we finally started getting into conversations about how might we do that. There was some concern in our group about, I think that maybe their vision of what a theme-based school would be seems too specific for them. I think there was some concern about, well, how are you going to know that a child of that age is an arts kid? And I think that's just maybe a learning curve that needs to happen about what does an integrated arts school really look like? What does that really mean? I don't think that means you're pigeonholing someone into being an arts kid. It's just creating an engaging environment with which to give the basics, right? So, but there was some nice conversation about creating a really nice, broad exposure to all of those things we just talked about, and even maybe dividing the year into themes Now, that's a lot more complicated, but the idea of, you know, having a trimester that's arts focus, a trimester that's technology or science and focus, and then maybe one that's entrepreneurial focus or something like that, so.
You know, I'm sitting here wondering if, because we tend to think that whatever we offer, that everybody should get it. And so I wonder if it's changing mindset as much as anything. I don't know, that's just what I was thinking about as you're saying that, is that we tend to think that, well, if we do it at this school, then obviously we need to do it at this school and this school and this school.
Or someone's going to miss out if they choose to, if they're at the creative arts school, well, then they're going to miss out on all the fun science stuff that's going on at the other school.
Well,
that's kind of how I think it's the vision that folks.
And I think that a theme school doesn't mean that those students wouldn't have science.
Correct.
It would just be a concentration on the arts.
Well, they're doing science with an arts focus.
Right. Pat?
Our group started at the very, very, very basic, and that was consistently and universally do the 21st century
That's good too.
learning skills and capacities and life skills, and that everywhere and in all classes you use collaboration and communication and all of those things. So consistently. And then, let's be honest, let's look at, remember that article we read about why people choose certain schools? It's not just because of themes and this and that, and you brought it up in terms of high quality. And so how to make each school the best school it can be for a child. And we talked about, I had a parent who chose another school because they know where that kid's going to be, kind of kindergarten through 4, through 5, through 6. They see a path for that child. So how can we create a continuum, a path for a child that looks like, you're starting with us in preschool and you're going to get to the end of high school, so that it really looks like a school for that child, because it isn't the small feel, it's the individual feel that we're really thinking about, and themes and those kind of things may be nice, but how do I find the best for my child and move them through? Now, I don't know quite what that looks like, but that's what we ought to be doing everywhere, anywhere.
Jeff?
I think in our group, our group used the term niche-based instead of theme-based. Which was interesting, but I think I like the way the question was posed. The question was posed, how can we be more competitive? What do we need to do to be more attractive? And our group, several of the members of our group made a statement that we talk about engaging the kids, but it's equally important, if not more important, to engage the parents.
Absolutely.
Because the pathway that Pat talked about is if you've got the parents engaged, and they're going to help direct their child down that path.
Absolutely.
They're going to help, and I think and I just take a look at how I followed my kids through Richmond schools. I was engaged. I was involved. I knew what classes they were getting into and what their end result was going to be. And so if we engage the parent, that will probably do as well. I think the other thing that was interesting, and I forget which member of the group brought this up, I think it was Gwen. She said that we really need career-focused or pathway counselors at very low ratios in the intermediate schools to help either direct, if you look at it from a 5th grade point of view, at 5th grade, and this counselor would work primarily with both the kids and the parents or guardian. It wouldn't be just a counselor focused with the kid.
Absolutely.
It would be, okay, let's come in and let's talk about what are your interests, what kind of paths. Here's all the things that we have to offer. Because when you get into the high school, we offer so many things at the high school that I don't think any one of us know everything that we offer at the high school. So
Right there.
if we're able to start that at least at the 5th grade, then we can, if they decide that they want to go a vocational track, they got it. If they want to go a professional degree track, they could work that way. If they want to go science, they could work that way. Arts, whatever. So I really like that. And just as a further thought, and we'll talk about it later, the Excel Center that wants to come into town to create, it kind of just rang a bell with me because that's their strength.
Right.
They're very, very high on the career counselors, and so there's some, that made really good sense to me.
And then to back it, to take that even further, then the elementary, our pre-K 4 is the exploratory that used to be the middle school. And so
That makes your continuum.
that makes the continuum, and the one suggestion that I heard was on the 5th day of specials, add a language, add Spanish, because every school, elementary school now has 2 of something, because we have 4 specials, basically library, arts, music, art, music, and phys ed, and add language, probably especially Spanish was a suggestion for that 5th day of a special. But then that's where you explore lots of different things that moves right into intermediate, just like that. That's
And Gwen
good.
was very hesitant to, I think I'm saying this right. I think counselor is almost not the right word to use.
Yeah, coach.
Yeah, maybe that's a better way.
Well, I read something about, I'll find the official title this one school used somewhere there.
But then the question would be then the ratio, you know, if we have, 600 students at the intermediates? And, you know, what ratio, if they're working with the parents and the child, I mean, you're gonna have to have a much lower ratio. I mean, what, 100 students?
Well,
That's 100 you should say 100 families to a,
you know, perhaps we could work on a mentoring type
Yeah.
coaching, you know.
Communities and schools were going to bring the parents as leaders, or somewhere I talked about communities and schools advancing or expanding their parents as leaders program from the elementary schools into intermediate and high school. So you've got, I mean, I think we have resources there to do just that.
all the same time still focusing on the different niches that you know, that we talked about, possibly. That's all I have.
Anybody else?
We also in our group talked about, we offer a tremendous amount of stuff that's great for kids, and a lot of times a lot of people don't know what all's offered, and that it becomes important for everybody, including teachers and sometimes even students, to be ambassadors. Everybody has to be an ambassador for their school. I think we talked about having more groups, more discussions like this with other different segments of the community, because that vests your community in your school system. They feel they have a part, that they're being heard. So more focus groups like this, where they can have a voice in things, and also at the same time find out what we're really doing, because we don't advertise that enough. So we also talked about the theme schools. We talked about and that being at elementary level, and moving up, because we talked about like starting orchestra, things like orchestra early, because we are the only school with an orchestra. So there's a lot of things that we can promote, and we talked a lot about the marketing end of it, that we're not marketing enough. The kids who leave us that are successful, I know Bridget's got that on the web page now, which is good, but kids who leave us that are successful things they're doing, expanding the voc ed program, so that kids can, if they do have to leave high school and can't go on to something, they can go on to an apprenticeship, or they can get a job from high school when they leave high school. So those kinds of things.
Kelly, you're...
Just that I agree with her on everyone being an ambassador for their school, students and teachers and parents and so forth. And it was great to hear from principals and from teachers. I would like to actually hear from some students as to what they like about school. There were a lot of really positive comments in our group. And once again, it leads me to think that we aren't tooting our own horn enough or so forth and getting the word out, like the addition of the AP classes for next year. Everybody needs to know about that. That's huge. Nobody can offer what we offer as far as courses go at the high school AP and so forth. So we talked about that. We talked about keeping ahead of or up to date with technology. We do a good job with that, but that's something that needs to be continuous and consistent, and professional development and so forth, just to keep up with the kids. They come out ahead, it seems like. Let's see, what else did we talk about? The arts, how important having a drama program and having speech and how those things, we found out a few years ago, keep the kids in school, keep them, coming to school each day, a lot of those different things. So,
Strikes. Aaron?
Our group, one of the last big discussions that we had before being cut off was the issue of diversity and the lack of diversity, actually. The climate of our community has changed so much over the last 20 or 25 years. Yet at the same time, the offerings that we have do not seem to really go to the diverse needs of the community. We were speaking in particular about African American males as well as Hispanic Latino students in our community, and how we really have not earnestly had the open discussion, the nuts and bolts open discussion on how to go into various communities in this school, in this city, and engage in the conversation of what is it going to take to keep your son or daughter in school. Is it going to be to have a role model teacher who your son or daughter can identify with, who can speak the language, who will understand the necessities that they need, not just in the classroom, but also outside of the classroom, that is going to cause them to want to come to school the next day and keep them engaged. Our concern was not just about keeping them from leaving Richmond Community Schools, but also retaining them, whether it be, when they're 8th graders or 9th graders. I get to see, the end result of that, of the dropouts, those kids who just have no desire to come to school anymore. And a lot of it has to be not having a role model or someone that they can identify with because they are different than them. It may be the best teacher in the world, but again, if that student cannot identify with them, then we're not meeting their needs in, when it comes to the diversity. And I really say that we have got to at some point go into the, lack of better expression, the hedges and the highways and the byways, and compel them to come in and keep them in by going out and engaging them in that. And, a thought came to my mind, because I love Indiana University basketball, and using a basketball analogy, programs are built basically through recruitment of identifying who is going to be the best person, the best player. And if you can get that individual to come and join your corporation, or somebody commit to come to your school, it usually lends other people who are associated with that person to come there as well. And a thought that came to mind is to identify those alpha students or those alpha families in the community that may already be a part of our corporation, but to engage them, whether, directly in conversation with the offerings in our intermediate schools, in our high school, and our elementary schools, to engage them one-on-one with the conversation of what we have to offer. And they won't get a better education in this area than what we have to offer. But do that, because if we keep them, again, that word of mouth spreads. And why we lose people is because, when one family leaves, their friends tend to say, hey, listen, if they're leaving, we're going to take our kids and we're going to go there also. So identify, market it, identify those alpha students, those alpha families, get them, keep them here, or compel them to come back. And hopefully, that same effect happens.
Kelly? To add on to that, when you're talking about recruitment of students, to recruit, it was brought up in our group, the best teachers for the job also.
I'm not sure, as I've talked to parents, that telling them what we offer is as important as telling them what their kid will get. The AP classes, so what does that mean? Well, in dollars and cents, an AP class means if your son or daughter gets this, this, or this, you may have so many. That was really appealing to somebody I talked to. They didn't know what AP meant. We just throw AP around as though everybody in the world understands. But part of the niche is what we can offer a kid, not necessarily in terms of what the parents want. If a parent wants a kid to have a year of college before they go to college, this is the place to come, and we can outline that. So I guess we're almost doing a return on investment for, very, very specific stuff.
Because we talked about this recently, the cost factor, the cost savings that a family has with their students who are involved with that by the time that they graduate, and how much money they save on a college education simply by coming here and going through these courses. And in a time when dollars are scarce, to a lot of families, you think that if your son or daughter graduates from Richmond Community Schools, having been involved with this, not only will you have these college credits, but possibly an associate's degree, and think about how much money you are saving immediately. So,
I tried to, as we were having this conversation, just to get some organization to this, I tried to write down some of the big picture themes, I guess. And I know on one of the charts, so I have this kind of first, is I think it was yours, Jeff, it said a well-organized plan. And so I guess that's what we're kind of striving for here. But I've heard a lot about engaging parents. So that was one of the themes that I wrote down, that we need a continuum from preschool through graduation. And project-based, inquiry-based learning. I heard that.
Consistent and universal.
Common language throughout the district, and I think that was in reference to marketing and in reference to learning and everything. A common language, preschool through graduation. Celebrate diversity. I loved what was said in your group. Celebrate diversity to create diversity. And so that, again, is meeting the needs of our groups of people. Theme schools, programmatic offerings, and I guess marketing would go up with common language. But those were, did anybody hear, or can you think of any other
I guess it's
areas?
implicit in just the conversation, but we have to build on our strengths. And people identified our arts, the fact that we still have arts, music, library, and PE, and especially our elementary classes. And, the beauty, but build on the things that we already have.
I'll put that with the well-organized plan, building on our strengths. Any other, I mean,
Well, and I think we need to talk a little bit too about truly college and career ready when they graduate with no remediation needed.
Yeah. Ready for success in
Right.
college and career.
that, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that. And I
That kinda
love
goes
the
with
idea
pathways, so.
of, the elementary being the exploratory and
Yeah.
then moving on that continuum. I think
Yeah.
that is just, yeah.
And that's a graphic we could draw, or somebody could.
The common, talk about project-based learning, but the thing that's sort of even bigger than that for me is the idea of engaging kids and families and the relevance, connecting it to reality. Those are major
That's
themes.
21st century skills.
Exactly.
I mean,
Well, at the end of the conversations, and I'm glad she's still here. Nancy Green and I had a conversation. I touched bases with her, and she asked an interesting question. And the question was, how are you going to roll this out? And we tend to beat good ideas to death in terms of presentation. We will roll this out as a report. We'll discuss it at 3 more meetings and redo the report. And then we will communicate it on the website as a black and white report. I think, and Nancy's suggestion to me was, let's make sure that whatever is done with this tonight, and whatever it becomes, is something that people will want to know about, especially young parents.
Well, you know what? I am now on Twitter, and I was going to tweet tonight, and I don't know how to do it. And so Bridget was supposed
Ask
to.
Brian.
But
Yeah, Brian can show you.
Brian could show.
A live blog.
A live blog from the, but at the Chew on This meeting a couple of weeks ago, that tweet was going all of the time, and it was kind of fun to watch the response. And you know who is on Twitter? Not very many old folks, I must admit. Lots and lots of parents that we want to connect to. And so, I mean, Bridget's right on there, but what if we did it? Whoa. I'll have to learn. Brian?
Well,
after
so
the
with that
meeting, right?
said,
Better be on account, huh?
maybe we should move into next steps, thinking.
Well, one of the next, I mean, the most basic next step is to make sure that we don't miss out on ideas that were generated tonight. So we're going to have to compile this information, try to find some threads and organize it, and get this back out to you so you have something to ponder, as we will ourselves. But that's not a rollout. I want to make sure you understand, that is not a rollout. That is simply more processing. And we don't want to confuse conversation to prepare for a rollout for the real thing. We don't want to do that.
Well, obviously, parents and someone mentioned students. We had a few parents here tonight, but that is certainly an audience that is very important to us. Pat?
One last comment. I guess I heard more about repackaging what we already do than creating lots of new stuff. I mean, I think
did.
that's what
I
I
agree
heard.
with
Would anybody else kind of say that?
Well, and as I listened, and it goes back to that continuum.
Yeah, that's,
Because some of the things, as a matter of fact, I was trying to think, how many of the programs that we offer, or the, how many go from preschool through graduation? Or how many are at the maybe intermediate and high school, but we haven't kicked in at the elementary? So, I think that we have a good start.
Well, and I just wanted to
Sorry, Jan.
emphasize
Right.
too, that I'm sorry.
No, that's, go ahead.
When you were talking about the report, because we all know about doing things like this and it becomes a report and then it's forgotten about. And I know you have to put it together, but I think we need to really be thinking about action steps. Because people, when they come and participate in something like this, they want to see results, not a report.
Jeff,
Well,
I
kind of
agree
like
with you.
closing the loop, which Suzanne uses that term a lot. But I guess from my perspective, I think one of the things that as information comes out, as whatever that is, I think from whatever, if we decided we want to do an integrated arts program, for example, or a technology one-to-one initiative in an elementary school, you know, it isn't something that we're going to start this fall. It's something that we're going to want a year to plan. So, I mean, I don't want to give the public the impression that we're having these meetings and then, you know, open up on August 12th and we're going to have this. I don't think that's the direction, that's not the direction I'm going. So I think we want to make sure whatever we do that we really have truly time to plan for it and prepare the staff for it so they're not learning on the fly. So.
Yeah, our master plan accomplished the sort of bricks and mortar for us to be able to have these creative conversations. So now the next step is what you asked was, what kinds of things could we do or be to give us a competitive advantage? And I love that question. That's the question. Because we have a lot of the elements. And so is it packaging? Is it curriculum? Is it communication?
All the above.
All those things.
Well, you know, we're not going to be able to bring in all of our parents, all the community who might want to weigh in on that kind of question.
Absolutely.
But we have, if Misty Hollis were here tonight, she would share with you the beginning of a survey that we have put together that's really meant for the whole community, not just a niche of the community, but the community. And what I would like to think about is creating a survey that could get to these parents, these community patrons, these students who might have some ideas and never have an opportunity to come in and actually sit down like we did tonight with around 35 people. That may be one of our next action steps to get some more feedback.
Would it be possible, too, to have these conversations at the different schools?
I think we're wide open to ideas. One of Linda's suggestions early on, I shouldn't say early on, but she and I were debriefing just right after, and one of her thoughts was maybe we need to be doing some focus groups based on what we're learning here initially. That could be done at the buildings.
And maybe you ask the parent organization to sort of help you facilitate it and bring in people and
The PALS
ask
group is
questions.
meeting
Parents as
now.
leaders, this would be a good place
No.
for them to step.
They're meeting now, aren't they? I mean, isn't that in session now?
PALS.
PALS on Saturdays?
Oh,
I
they
think
are-
this
So,
current
yes.
class is meeting right now.
Again, if we were to do it and again, I agree completely, have it at the building levels. Go to them, go to the respective buildings, because if we continue to meet at one location, parent group from one location will not feel ownership or will not feel that necessarily we're hearing their concerns because we're at one central location. But if we go to each of those locations, they know that they'll feel that they're directly being heard because it's focused at their building. So
Well, it's a better comfort zone.
true.
And then they get more vested in
Good point.
Okay, so to close the loop here, we're certainly working on some action steps, and the first of those may be a survey that will be going out to our community and our students, perhaps.
using some of the feedback that we've received tonight.
That's great. Okay. And then continuing to figure out, where we go next with this after we get the information all organized and have a chance to process. I'm sure that, I know my wheels are sure turning. I'm sure everybody else's is too. Administration, any of you want to make any comments before we go on to our next topic? I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to leave you out.
You did.
Well, and you're going
I'm
to
gonna
step
talk.
up to the plate.
I sure am. I was impressed with our group that everyone spoke. There wasn't any pulling of teeth. We didn't have to encourage anybody to speak. Everybody was glad to participate. And I think we acknowledged that we have some wonderful things happening in Richmond Community Schools that many people don't know about. So I'm walking away from this not so much asking, what am I going to do for the school district? What's my next project going to be? But what will I personally do to promote the things that we have at Richmond Schools? Who do I need to tell? And I don't mean, do an ad or anything like, who do I personally need to tell? So I'm walking away with that tonight.
Well, I can tell you, I was back in the back group. I don't know what group number it was. But Rob, a couple of times I watched you, and you were up on the edge of your seat talking really energetically about, a lot of the conversation that you were having. I took note of that,
Well,
so.
I'm pretty passionate about it. I think we have the advantage of being the big player on the east side of Indiana, and I think we should really take advantage of that and not be afraid to be very successful and proud and go out of our way to express that. There's no problem being the champion, and there's no problem being the big guy and saying, hey, your son and daughter should be in this school system, because when you come out of here, you're going to have a Richmond Community School diploma and degree, and we feel sorry for you if you don't go here. So that's the way we should approach it. So.
Well, and that's kind of, I heard Bob had his calculator out, and he had figured up how many students were not attending Richmond Community Schools. About 1,000, did you say? 900?
That live in our school district.
Mm-hmm. And he had it all figured up that if just half of them would come, that would generate about $5 million.
All of them.
Think what we could do with
All
that.
of them. Half of them would be $2,500,000, but.
And the strategy is not to lose them, not to particularly take the ones that are already there, but we talked about transitions. So when you go from preschool to kindergarten, if you're in our preschool, we want you in our kindergarten. When you transition from fourth grade to middle school, we want to keep you and to put an emphasis on those, our group. And then if we do that, guess what? In 5 to 7 years, we'll have 400 of those students because we never lost them.
Yep. And we have you, here is your educational plan.
Right. When we were going to have, at each of those transitions, a capstone project. So fourth graders kind of present as capstone, and eighth graders do, and 12th graders do, so that people really see that they have progressed through a very, I'm kind of on the continuum piece. But I think we can do something to help people feel really important about those times. All right.
Anybody else?
Barb. I think of the other thing, I know that Kathy's group talked about alumni, successful alumni, and we have a lot that our teachers and just around this table, who are administrators in our corporation, who went through Richmond High School, went through the Richmond schools, came back, settled here, and chose to be a part of Richmond Community Schools and have their families here. And I think that says a lot. I've worked in other corporations, and you don't have that. You don't have the loyalty and commitment of people coming back and being in high positions as central office or administrators. So I think that says a lot for our schools also.
Right. Okay, good conversation. And we're going to make it more than conversation now. Okay, we are ready to move to follow-up of old business, and you're on.
I'd like to brief some of the board members. We had 3 board members who were with me yesterday in a conference with some officials from the Excel Center. And Jeff and Suzanne and Linda were able to be here. Suzanne couldn't stay for the whole meeting, so some of this may be information for her as well. But the purpose of the meeting was to discuss with them, I think I mentioned this on Monday evening, just to have a low-level discussion with them on what options might be. What's realistic, what could be envisioned. Ron Cross also met with us, and there were 3 individuals, a facilities rep, program
CFO.
director.
CFO.
And then was he the CFO?
Yeah, he wasn't the facilities, he was the CFO.
Oh, okay. And then you had the superintendent, I believe, of the system. And we had a very nice, it was a casual, it was a very low-key conversation, but we had to plumb the depths of some of the questions. And what we talked about was C.R. Richardson building specifically. What would it look like if we did not extend an opportunity to them for the CR building? Quite honestly, they probably can't offer a program this coming fall unless they go with the CR building. Now, we started brainstorming some other locations around the community, and they said, we have not done that. We've only looked at CR. They did look at Townsend, but they only have looked at CR because they want to try to open in the fall. If that's not possible, then of course they would expand their search. We think we have some questions about the legislation as it's written that would have to be answered before we could go further. For example, we're wanting to know what the process is, timing process for taking a building or requesting a building come off the list as it sits right now. CR is on a list with the state that has established that it's closed and will be closed for a time from instructional use, and after so long it becomes available for charter schools. Well, the Discovery, Inc., which is the STEM Academy, has informed us that they would like to have that building. Well, the XL Center would like to have it too. One of the questions is, are we obligated at this point in time to give it up to anybody? If we determine that it has educational use, why can't we just put it back in commission whenever we're ready at this point? And the other big question is, and Ron and I are going to talk to some legal people at the DOE to see what their take is on this. If we're ready to put that building back into an educational use, what would be the possibility, or would there be any problem with contracting a third party to perform those educational services? Why couldn't, if we wanted to tomorrow, we could hire the XL Center to come in and do a program for us at Charles, if we had the room, or at the high school, or at the Hibbard. But we have a problem with a building that is available to us for any use we want, you know, that's a concern. The YMCA has expressed interest in the C.R. Richardson building. Now, they weren't at the table yesterday, and I'm sure they'd have come to the table had we invited them. But we see, and the Excel Center officials also see the YMCA as a logical co-tenant, co-lessor in that building. The bottom floor has a variety of possibilities. So what we talked about yesterday would be next steps for us. Next step for us is to have that conversation with some officials at the DOE and their legal division to find out process for bringing a building back onto use, you know, onto line for use, and then third party providers. Is that acceptable? The Excel Center also is going to be submitting an official interest in the CR building too. They feel like they must do that as a logical next step for them, so that if it comes down to which charter school is given preference, they want to make sure they have put their bid in for the building too.
Did you happen to ask them if they're still in a connection or relationship with Discovery, Inc.?
They were
have a relationship, official?
Well, they have a relationship because it was Kevin Hanley who approached them to begin with about, you know, this project.
But
so
are they still insisting that Discovery, Inc. come along with them?
No.
Okay.
No. I think that they're wanting to be very cautious not to burn any bridges.
I understand.
And should the STEM Academy be given extended life through their appeal process or finding another authorizer or whatever might happen, they want to make sure that they have a relationship that would allow them to partner down the road. And I think that that's probably a smart thing for them to be doing. But they were most explicit in saying, we would like to partner with you in a project, and we would like for it to be the CR building. The two of you sat through the same meeting I did. You probably picked up more than I did, though, so.
Well, I think the other thing that we, I mean, there's, and they even admitted at this, there's many different issues that we have to face. The availability of the building is one. The other one is their timeline.
Right.
They clearly understand that they were given the right to, or authorized the charter if they secured the building by a certain time. Well, based on their meetings and our meetings, the timeline may be one that we can't even overcome if we want to.
But they did make it very clear, I felt, that if it didn't work out to open in 2013, they were still willing to pursue something for 2014. And they would like to have the C.R. Richardson building, but they certainly are open to perhaps another building that might work for them. They did say, though, that they would prefer that the building didn't take a lot of work. I mean, they would like for it to be as ready as possible. I mean, they have some thoughts about doing some things that they need to change in the CR building, but most of it's pretty cosmetic, I think. With the exception, they need to make a room that is would be appropriate for their caring for students preschool through
12 years old, wasn't it?
12.
Yeah, through 12 years old.
Exactly.
You mean childcare?
Childcare. And that would mean they would need to put a restroom in and, some things that would meet that need.
It would have, 500 students from day one about 230 at a time would be the approximate number that would be attending, basically 75 per grade level, basically.
They really feel like they could get that many students
Oh,
from
they-
day one?
Well,
They have no doubt. I mean,
They've-
they were very confident in that.
their goal is 300, but there will probably be, you know,
Yeah, that's throughout the year, they would serve that many students.
I
But
see.
it would be
some
300 at one
coming and
time.
going. They would be coming and
They
going.
work on, what they say, 8
weeks.
8-week units. So there would be students going in and out. But as I understand, there is one count day. And so their funding is based on that one count. Depending on that count would determine their revenue stream. But there would be students coming in and out through the year.
And they would employ about 25 staff members. I mean, it is very comprehensive.
Well, and it's needed. I mean, that's,
We
What-
heard that tonight so many times. We heard
Absolutely.
it tonight that we need to reach our parents. We need to bring parents into an awareness of what educational opportunities are all about. And that goes beyond just making them aware of what we do. It means increasing or somehow igniting a value that they have. And that's where I see the Excel Center fitting in beautifully.
Right. Dixie?
Now, are we still talking lease, not takeover?
They would be interested in a lease. They are not interested in owning a school building.
Okay.
They
Right.
were pretty clear about
Good.
that.
They lease most of their buildings.
Okay.
They do own, I think, a couple. And, but they really, they want someone else to be responsible for maintaining the building. And, they don't really want to own the building.
They want as much money, they don't want to spend any money on the building. They want all their money to serve the education. I mean,
admirable.
Well, they would spend money on a lease.
Who doesn't?
right, but, ma'am, but I mean, but they would not use any money for facilities.
Right, right, to purchase facilities.
we have to balance that now, Jeff.
So, any other comments or
Any word from Head Start?
discussion about CR?
Kathy?
No.
I would guess until,
Sequester is helping.
yeah.
No
I would,
kidding.
I would guess if that were to be resolved, we might hear something sooner.
So what do you see as the timeline for the DOE question and answer? Because
Well,
that's kind of the next key piece
we've
of work.
begun that
Okay.
that communication. We haven't heard yet.
Okay.
I'm hoping that maybe the superintendent's office can help us.
It's kind of a tough one right now
Well, and
because
the-
they're going through transition and.
Yeah, but we're
personnel
still stuck in the middle needing an answer, so
Yep.
hopefully
Right.
we can get
Well,
somebody to
and that's
help out.
one of the other issues is the appeal decision from Ball State. We're not sure when,
That's
for sure,
another
that's
one,
coming down, so.
Well, and if Ron were here, Ron Cross, he would tell you, there will come a point where it's going to be a matter of how much risk does this board want
Right.
to take?
At some point, you have to pull the trigger and decide that based on what you know now and the legal findings of those experts that are in place now, we have to make a call
Yep.
and be willing to back it up.
At what point? Well, once it's occupied, it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
Well,
Agreed.
that's the other thing, is it would be a 5-year lease.
Yeah, they would like to have.
They
a
would like to
5-year.
have a 5-year
That
lease,
makes
so.
sense, that they wouldn't want it
So
too much shorter than that.
We really have to make sure that we've got, things that we're.
Well-organized plan.
A well-organized, there, I like that. That's good. Thank you for
Jeff's
saving me,
gonna have that
Linda.
on a badge.
But, and that's why we're starting with the questioning the DOE. I mean, we talked about next steps, and we just felt that
That
had
seems
to
to
be
be
our next
first,
step.
and then we need to figure out what Ball State's doing. That seems to be next.
That
Then,
probably won't be till the
25th.
End of April.
April
April
25th.
25th?
That's what they had heard. That's what Excel Center had heard.
That is a long
And that's after,
way
and that's
from-
after the decision date that they've got to have.
That
That's
is
not very fair to those parents.
Well, it's really not very fair to anyone because
to
it's a very
anyone, right.
difficult time. That is putting such a handcuff on anyone,
Yeah.
whatever decision they
including
make.
The STEM
It-
Academy.
Yeah, it's just making it very difficult for anyone to react in a timely way for the following year. Dragging their feet.
But it was very positive. They were very positive people. It was a very pleasant meeting.
They have.
We have successful alums teaching for them, don't we?
Yes,
We sure do.
Yes, they certainly have a vision, and they're carrying that vision forward.
They're definitely filling out a gap too, which I think is nice.
Huge
to
need.
have.
Good. What are we doing anything?
Okay, our next
I lost my.
topic is public commentary. Anyone in the public wish to speak? You are most welcome if anyone want to say
Thanks
anything.
for hanging in there with us too.
Yes,
They're all
some
asleep.
people stay. Any other comments for the good of the cause? If not,
Ding, ding.
we are adjourned.